A winter morning in the last big trees of Madagascar. The giant lemurs are waking up. As the mists lift, their strange cries echo through the primeval forest. These giant lemurs called indris are threatened because their habitat is being destroyed. Indris eat over 200 species of plants, and so they're condemned by the disappearance of the island's biodiversity. But someone is doing something about it. A man who has understood that the conservation of nature can also be the means for economic development. Olivier Behra is French. He's lived in Madagascar for 16 years and set up a humanitarian organization called Man and Environment that seeks to develop Madagascar's natural resources. The Saint-Ella harvest went very well. From Avavanas. It's been well sorted. What's it used for? The leaves are used to make drugs, to heal wounds and for cosmetics. Basically, skin creams. You don't use creams, do you? We trained people in collection techniques so they do it correctly. This gives them an income rather than paying factory workers to do the same job. The leaves are very beautiful. There are no impurities, so this is a high-quality product. Accompanied by Marat, a young orphan he looks after, Olivier works to prevent the destruction of the forest by organizing the collection of medicinal plants. In Madagascar, the crops are planted in burnt fields. Yet every day thousands of acres of forest disappear. In Voiman, the nature reserve he manages, Olivier Behra was able to convince the Madagascan government to give all the land to the farmers. This stopped the flow of itinerant croppers and protects what remains of the primeval forests. Another effect is to save the lemurs. Because if all the plants in the forest disappear, the lemurs at the top of the food chain will disappear too. "50 species of lemurs live in Madagascar. Originally, they were all nocturnal and only the size of mice. By becoming diurnal, 4 species, the lemurs, the indris, the propitheks, and the aricias, grew much larger. These diurnal species bark to defend their territory and show their dissatisfaction. Distant cousins of monkeys, lemurs live in trees 30 meters above the ground and move around with graceful ease. They live in the tree-top canopy for protection, as the youngsters are easy victims for birds of prey and snakes. Although adults are protected by international conventions, they're often killed for food. Olivier Behra believes that it's not enough to protect them from poachers or simply to create a wildlife reserve. Lemurs are the guardians of an earthly paradise, and to save them, the natural biodiversity has to be protected too. In the evenings, student volunteers and Madagascan guides enjoy listening to Olivier's latest adventures. It wasn't in fact lemurs, but crocodiles that brought him to Madagascar in the first place. After paddling around for 3 years in the mangrove swamps of Central Africa, Olivier discovered this island where crocodiles are venerated, and he's been here ever since. It's a great story, I'm going to tell you, because we walked about 20 kilometers into the mountains, and we crossed that river at least 20 times, I remember. And at nightfall, we arrived in the village, and then we were told it was forbidden to go to the lake. It's taboo. Boats are not allowed. I said to them, "You have got to be kidding. We walked all day to see the local crocodiles, and now you tell us we can't?" So I went down to the bank, and I said, "Listen, I'm a member of the crocodile family. It's different. My ancestors were crocodiles." So the whole village came down to the lake with their witch doctor. Everyone stood on the hill to watch the funny white man and the village witch doctor. I told him to stay where he was. I walked down to the lake, and I imitated a baby crocodile's distress cry. But I can't do that here. It's fatty, it's taboo. You can't do that in the presence of women. If you do, they can't have children anymore. But anyway, just imagine, in the middle of the lake on the surface, there's this adult crocodile, and I imitated the cry again. He turned, headed directly towards me, and stopped 3 meters away. All the locals who were there, imagine, on the hill, their eyes were popping out of their heads. After I went back up, I went to the witch doctor and I said, now you saw it, it came, we talked, and there's no problem. We can go on that lake. But you have to give him a chicken to thank him. So we killed the chicken, gave it to the crocodile, and we set off, just the witch doctor and I, on the lake, and I could get on with my work. But it was very amusing. The people on the hill, it was crazy really, the crocodile in the middle of the lake, which came directly towards me. That was magic. I get into crocodiles almost by accident. I'd gone back to Africa where I'd grown up to, find my roots. And one night, I went out on a river with a hunter, and he caught me a baby crocodile, about 60 centimeters long. And when I held this baby crocodile in my hands, well, I was thunderstruck. I was fascinated. Something extraordinary happened, something otherworldly. It's like a baby dinosaur, I thought. It was a revelation, and I knew I had to study this animal and understand everything about it. Came back to France, but I've never stopped my quest for knowledge about crocodiles. Olivier became an animal keeper at the Vincennes Zoo. Totally unqualified, this was the only way he could get close to the saurians. But very quickly, the Natural History Museum researchers recognized this 20-year-old's potential. No one had ever made a census of crocodiles until Olivier proposed to study them. He invented a scientific methodology and traveled to the Congo, Gabon, and most countries in Africa. The program was financed by the United Nations. Nothing could stop him. Not the leech-infested waterways, the vegetation-covered rivers, the high humidity, nor the mosquitoes. Nothing. Olivier succeeded in making the first census of crocodiles in Africa. He captured hundreds of reptiles, differentiated the species, and marked them all before releasing them. He tracked them at night. Their eyes glow red when lit by a torch beam. The young adventurer, today vice president of the UICN African Crocodile Program, made a huge internationally recognized contribution to scientific knowledge about these cold-blooded reptiles. The animal which has become Olivier's destiny has boasted an unchanged splendor for 65 million years, a virtually prehistoric species. The crocodile is a miracle of nature. It knows how to conserve its energy better than any other animal. The powerful muscles in its tail propel it silently on the surface of the water. It melts into rivers without a ripple. Slowly, it observes. The largest predator in the waters of Africa is always alert. Crocodiles are amphibians. Their eyes are positioned on the same level as their nose and ears, so they can use all three senses to locate their prey before leaping on it. When I arrived, the Madagascans classified crocodiles as pests, so they were being exterminated. I had to demonstrate that they were in fact, well, useful to have around. From an ecological point of view, their role is obvious, as they keep rivers clean. It's a great benefit. We set up a system which involved the locals. In the regions covered by the program, the reproducers are preserved. Crocodiles are now in the useful animals category and considered as game rather than pests. People are glad to live with the crocodiles. They put up fences to protect their cattle, but now they live in peace with them. Crocodiles are always dangerous animals, but the locals live with them and accept them. In Madagascar, like the rest of Africa, crocodiles are massively killed, either for food or for their skins. And all the species of saurians are threatened with extinction. The only species that lives in Madagascar is the Nile crocodile. It can grow up to 5 meters in length. It has 100 spare teeth in case it loses any during fights. A valve at the bottom of its throat isolates the respiratory tract so it can feed underwater. During the mating season, it's the male which chooses the female. A watery ballet starts, mingling the submission of the female and the repeated approaches of the male. Once these efforts are completed, each female will lay approximately 50 eggs a year. The eggs are laid in a nest of sand dug to a depth of 30 centimeters. The sex of the infants, determined in the eggs, depends on the external temperature. Below 30 degrees Celsius, they will be females. Above 32, they will be males. In between, they can be males or females. In 1990, I started a crocodile farming program in Madagascar for the United Nations. My personal interest was to save the crocodiles, not to develop farms. We trained local populations to collect the eggs so that they perceived crocodiles as revenue earners, not just predators. Another benefit was that the scientific control of egg incubation enabled us to avoid the very high mortality rates observed in nature. In this way, we could supply the farms without excessive pressure on the wild crocodiles and provide extra income for people living near the animals who saw their own interest in protecting them. Dimby has been Olivier's assistant since the program began. He's been collecting eggs for more than 15 years, and Dimby knows how important it is to be wary of broody mothers. When he goes egg collecting, he's always accompanied by 2 bodyguards, armed with thick sticks. The crocodile farming and egg collection schemes have worked. Crocodile populations are growing near the participating villages. Olivier Behra's ecosystem management policy is to try to find solutions that encourage animals and local populations to live in harmony. After a few years, if the method seems to be working well, he delegates project management to the Madagascans to leave himself time to develop new ideas. Dimby has been managing the crocodile program for the last 4 years, but each egg harvest is a good opportunity to meet up again. Well, I'm taking these eggs from Besselang to my colleague, and we're bringing exactly 5,473 eggs. It's been a good year. We'll have to check out the farmers' records, of course, but it has been a very good year. We come back each year and the villagers are glad to earn the money for the eggs. It's a good way to protect the crocodiles that reproduce in their natural surroundings. And the people are still interested? Yes, they really are. Now Olivier has introduced the same system for collecting medicinal plants and distilling essential oils. His objective is to protect Madagascar's rich ecosystem by involving the Madagascan populations yet again. This is Voibola, the second nature reserve Olivier manages. To the east of Madagascar, it is one of the last remaining primeval forests on the country's coast. Olivier recruited a team of young Madagascan women, engineers and agronomists to help him. Chantal, Sophie and Ravenal met up with all the villagers to forge an atmosphere of mutual confidence. Among the poorest people in the world, they were very interested by the idea of collecting plants. In Voibola, the team decided to harvest calophyllum, the fruit of a tree that grows plentifully on these beaches. Calophyllum has remarkable healing properties. Olivier invented a cream made from this plant which is given free of charge to an association which cares for underprivileged children. It took 2 years to develop real collaboration. The team had to convince the village chiefs, prove that they would not lose their traditions, and that this activity could be financially interesting. Using the precepts of equitable trade, Olivier always pays the local populations first. In our policy of using local populations to manage the ecosystem, the valorization of medicinal plants is interesting for 2 reasons. First, it generates income for them. Second, it valorizes these plants and adapts it to traditional knowledge. People used to say, don't use these plants, they're only fit for witch doctors. But times have changed. Now, Westerners use the plants more and more frequently because they're effective, they're good, they're healthy. Here people have regained confidence in the use of plants and are proud to preserve their cultural heritage and their forests. Olivier encouraged the locals to set up small distilleries throughout the region. In-depth research programs explore all the properties of the essential oils they produce. And every year, students come here to do field work as part of their courses. Julia, a young French girl, is doing a master's in agronomy and is writing her thesis on the use of oils in agriculture. So this plant comes from Mafuel. Yeah, 32 kilometers from here and 20 kilometers from Muramong. Is it Nauli? Yes. Nauli is extraordinarily beneficial in fighting lung disease and viruses affecting respiratory tracts. And it's also amazingly effective on colds. And what are the steps in distillation? Before starting distillation, the first step consists in working with the traditional Madagascan doctors. the healers. We observe how they use the plant, and then we check that the plant does have aromatic properties. The next step is the laboratory phase, and this is followed by local distillation, where Chantal is responsible for standardizing distillation conditions. For example, the essence is distilled for 3 hours and not 3.5, in order to ensure that in the end, the product meets industrial specifications. Products must always have exactly the same chemical compositions. While developing medicinal plants and essential oils, Olivier has also set up a program to save 3 species of trees in critical danger of extinction. His partner Barbara handles this project. She protects these trees, of which only 15 specimens remain in the world. Her job is to collect young shoots and plant them in seed beds. Right, so I'm going to go count the specimens with Jean-Paul. Great. It costs money to save threatened species, so Olivier is thinking of getting commercial companies involved in funding conservation of these 3 extremely rare trees. The innovative research program he's been running for 5 years is starting to succeed, and he recently convinced a major French laboratory to participate in his field work. I haven't got much, but it's good. See what you can do with it. Will that be enough to get an extract? I think so. Enough for an initial one, anyway. That's quite normal. Did you say that the locals use it a lot? Yeah, they apply it as a cataplasm to cure burns and wounds. Just the leaf. That's why I thought you might find it interesting. Yeah, we often use typical folk remedies. We have a lot of experience in valorizing plant remedies in international markets. One of them was the essential oil distilled from Ravensara aromatica, which grows in the local forests. Ravensara aromatica was used after the 9/11 attacks in New York City. Therapists from all over the world are working on plants from the Madagascar forests. The oil from this plant is fantastic in fighting stress, as well as being a marvelous remedy for respiratory tract diseases caused by viruses. So, when the New York firemen were digging through the wreckage of Ground Zero, well, they were treated by massage therapists from Alaska. And those massage therapists asked us to send them the oils. So it was essential oils from the Madagascar forest, produced by local villages there, which helped protect the firemen from respiratory problems and stress during their horrible mission at Ground Zero. You can see how everything's been rejuvenated. Nature always triumphs. 10,000 kilometers from the laboratories, Olivier returns to the Madagascan paradise he's fighting so hard to protect. To enable the number of lemurs to increase, parts of the reserve must be replanted with trees. The secrets about how to protect the species are hidden in the treetops, so you have to climb up. Marat, the young Mowgli of the Madagascar forest, accompanies his adoptive father. Trees have to be at least this tall so the lemurs can jump. We're experimenting with many kinds of trees by planting seedlings and watching to find out which grow fastest and as tall as we need. We'll try to lure the lemurs into the trees by planting fruit trees along the approach. Can you see any signs of feeding? Are there any tracks? What do lemur tracks look like? Well, you'll see the marks they leave on the trees and the scratches they make with their claws. Like all primates, baby prosimians are taught to eat by their mothers. Their food is basically leaves, young shoots, fruits, insects, larvae, and the nectar from flowers. Lemurs contribute to the pollination of some fruit trees and sow seeds in the forest. Their favorite delicacy is the sap which runs from the kapok trees. Before starting to look for food again, its main activity, this lemur takes time out for a siesta. Diurnal lemurs always live in groups, usually made up of 1 or 2 couples, their cubs, and a guide. It's the guide who chooses the moment and the direction to go when leaving a tree. All the members of the group always follow the guide without a moment's hesitation. When the cubs reach adolescence, they leave the group to found a family of their own. Etologists say that this behavior is to avoid consanguinity within the same species. The rules of submission and domination are established in acrobatic fights. These brawls usually finish with conscientious grooming, which helps to restore the social ties inside the group. Lemurs do not delouse their friends like monkeys, but brush each other's fur to make it glossy. Each species deposits hormones from glands usually located under the neck or the arms on the branches. The odors establish territorial limits, a territory which often has to be shared with man. On most of the island, lemurs are hunted for food or trapped to be sold as pets. But in 3 regions, legend endows Indris, Macaco, and Variasis lemurs with powers of protection. In this fishing village, the inhabitants have developed very particular links with Macaco lemurs. These sacred lemurs make wishes come true. If you want something, just give them bananas. Olivier Behra is particularly interested in this species protected by traditions because lemurs are disappearing outside these sacred sites. In all my approaches to ecosystem protection, I try to reconcile nature conservation with the good of the local people. I started with the crocodiles, wherever they were worshipped, because I found it was fundamental to conserve this aspect to ensure short and especially long-term project success. And now I do the same thing with lemurs and plants. We examine all the deities worshipped by the local residents and include them in our ecosystem management policies. By respecting local cultures, we work with them, not against them. To understand Madagascan traditions, Olivier questions the village chiefs. Why do they offer gifts to the lemurs? When you want something, you give them bananas, and then your wish comes true? Yes. If you're ill, if you want a new house, a car, or a boat, the lemurs make wishes come true, and that's why they're worshipped, and also why they're protected. But if somebody else came, someone who wasn't very nice and wanted to hurt the lemurs, lemurs do not come down to take bananas from bad people. That cannot happen. No, nobody would hurt the lemurs here. they're sacred.
Merci beaucoup, chef. Merci.
I always feel a personal loss when a lemur disappears. You have to remember that every acre that is burnt to the ground destroys the lemur's habitat. Hundreds of medicinal plants and hundreds of fantastic animals, marvelous insects and frogs. That's dramatic. It's unacceptable. We have to stop this wanton destruction. 500,000 acres of forest disappear each year. Itinerant agriculture is a real problem, but the prime cause of this massive deforestation is fire. Fire is lit to make charcoal, the only fuel Madagascans can afford. It's not rare to find regions in which forests have completely disappeared. If a small grove is left, it is because it is holy ground, a place where the dead are buried. As deforested zones are becoming increasingly numerous, the lemurs have to adapt, to find new routes to cross paths and roads without becoming too exposed to danger. Usually, lemurs descend from trees very gradually, stopping all the time to check for threats, and hesitate for a long time before they step onto the ground. The method is not important, only its effectiveness. A technique that just might make other lemurs jealous. Perched in the trees, all lemurs are equal. With their prehensile back legs, they grip the branches available perfectly balanced, whatever the size of the tree. Some lemurs have claws, others pads, but all are champion acrobats. Parents carry their cubs on their backs, and this is how they learn to travel and jump. The babies become independent at 8 months, and as soon as they can, they try to do just like the grown-ups. Traditions and culture are very important in Madagascar. The population's attachments to their ancestors and their land is fundamental. Taboos, which the Madagascans called fadis, are everywhere. So the first essential step in any development and conservation project is to consider the cultural aspects. In Madagascar, Traditions, legends, taboos, and even fears are an integral part of everyday life. Every 5 years throughout the country, a ritual festival in which the dead are exhumed brings whole villages together. The reason for the festival is to keep away evil. For this occasion, 5 zebus will be slaughtered as everyone in the village, about 1,500 people, have to be fed. After the meal, the villagers gather around the tombs. The ceremony of turning the dead can begin. The Madagascans believe that when you die, you become a supernatural power, acting for good or for evil. To protect yourself from evil spirits and enjoy a long life, the living must take care of the dead. The sons reach the tomb and call upon the ancestors to help them open the heavy door from the inside. Brothers and sisters, daughters and sons bring out the shrouds of their ancestors. It's a strange reunion. But this ceremony illustrates to what extent the world of the dead is present in the world of the living. Madagascan legends say that the dead who are not cared for by their families become tormented souls, bringing danger and threatening misfortune. Death rituals abound in everyday life, and the definitions of good and evil are rooted in these beliefs. There is no way the Ai could be considered holy. Quite the contrary. For all Madagascans, this lemur is the devil incarnate, a malefic spirit, a tormented soul which has to be chased away. The Ai is feared, but is totally inoffensive. Its long, hooked fingers earned it the nickname of the Devil's Hand. It is systematically killed and has almost disappeared from the island. Much smaller and more appealing, the Microcebus, a nocturnal lemur, is not persecuted like the Ai. And this observation made specialists wonder if good looks are what makes the difference between being thought of as good or bad. However, despite being frightening, one species is venerated, a reptile, the Nile crocodile. In the Ankarn region, on the banks of the Lake Antananarivo, the inhabitants maintain very good relationships with the lake crocodiles. This zebu is an offering. The prior explains to the bovine that it has been selected to honor the meal of the holy reptiles. Accustomed to the ritual chant, the crocodiles of the lake approach. Otherwise, they would flee the presence of man. But these crocodiles are different. Legend tells us that a stranger once arrived in the village and asked for water. Everyone refused to let him drink except one, a woman. The stranger told her to leave the village because he was going to give a lot of water to those who had refused him. When the woman returned, the village was under a lake and all the villagers had been transformed into crocodiles. Since that time, very regularly, the descendants of the only person to escape offer a zebu to their ancestors, the crocodiles. These women who live in total poverty and who seldom have meat to cook for themselves always make sure the crocodiles are fed. What the crocodiles leave on the edge of their plates is shared among the villagers.
Est-ce que les crocodiles sont sacrés?
Are all the crocodiles near Ankon sacred or only those in this lake? Only those in this lake. Nobody is allowed to harm the crocodiles. Nobody can kill a crocodile here. And nobody can go in the lake either. And what would happen if somebody came and killed a crocodile?
Dangereux.
It's dangerous. He'd die. If somebody did kill a crocodile, he would be dead before he got back to the town. He says that somebody once took a dog down to the lake, and he died before he got back to the village. Because the lake is sacred too. It's sacrilegious to take a dog near the lake. So he fell sick and died. When I left France to make inventories, I was young and afraid of nothing. That enabled me to do things academics would probably not have ever dared to, like going to the unexplored parts of the world to observe crocodiles that had never been studied. I was not a scientist when I started, but I discovered new things, went to lost places where crocodiles had never been researched, and so I became a scientist simply led by the spirit of adventure. I was ready to suffer in the field, and sometimes it was very tough, but I discovered marvelous things of great interest to science. Olivier never lost this adventurous spirit, nor his need to share his findings with others. In this case, the secrets of these sharp-edged cliffs with his partner Barbara. The Tsing, limestone cliffs through which underground rivers run, is home to crocodiles with unknown behavior patterns. After all these years studying crocodiles, if I went back to fieldwork, I'd come here. Because there really are things we still do not understand. For example, how do crocodiles move around in the dark? What do they eat here? Everything remains to be discovered. If I had the time, this is where I'd be. Perhaps when all my projects are up and running. Can you see those tracks there? Look, you can see a tail. And the front legs are there, the back legs there. Judging by the size of the leg, the crocodile must be about 1 meter 75 in length. Look, there's a baby.
Alors,
ça fait
That's 60 centimeters long.
60 centimètres.
6 months to 2 years old. Seems well fed. What do you think the youngsters eat? Oh, small fish, crabs, shrimps. But there is a big mystery about what the big reptiles eat. Doesn't he look cool? No parasites, no stress. In a few years, Olivier might hand over his humane organization to others, so he can spend his time observing the mysterious cave crocodiles. But that's another story. Everyone can do something. We can all change the way we live. Perhaps live more simply and contribute to general happiness, or by protecting all the wonders of nature, like lemurs and trees. There's nothing more magnificent than these living cuddly toys. We must protect our environment for future generations, and then they'll pass it on intact to the generations after them. It is feasible, and it can be done. If everyone does a little and is committed to respecting the things and people that exist, our world will survive. It'll recover its natural balance and ensure the well-being of everyone.